Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a huge thank you to Robert Millen for sending in some awesome pictures of his scions. Robert's just got into paint scions, painted his first batch, and I had to say I absolutely love the Ambot stand-in for the Bullgryns. They look absolutely fantastic, and I didn't notice until I actually looked at these pictures a bit more closely, trying to get an idea of what you've done for the colour scheme, that you've swapped the Anvil head for a Scion head, so it looks like some sort of Scion Dreadnought, maybe some sort of exosuit armour. Either way, it looks absolutely fantastic, so thank you for sending in these pictures, Robert. They look absolutely awesome, I love the conversions. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Now, what I want to do today, guys, is take you through step by step one of the more popular Tournament Imperial Guard lists that we have been seeing doing the rounds at the end of 8th edition and the beginning of 9th edition. Imperial Guard got a lot of buffs with Psychic Awakening. They were kind of overshadowed by Tau, but there was a lot of stuff that gave Guard quite a few options to be competitive on the tournament scene. Now, the list I'm going to go through, I can't guarantee you that it's going to win you Las Vegas Open, but I would say that it is an extremely strong list. It takes advantage of all the best bits that Guard currently have available to them, and it is definitely a strong list that you could take to any tournament. Now, we're going to go through it step by step. So it is a 2 detachment list. Both of the detachments are battalions, and everything across the board is going to be the Catachan Doctrine. So Catachan is remaining currently, what it's looking like is remaining to be the most competitive regiment choice. Now, the first detachment has 3 HQ choices. You've got a couple of tank commanders, both of these loaded out with the Executioner Plasma Cannon and the Plasma Sponsons and the whole Heavy Bolter. Now, you guys have seen these tank commander loadouts in action on my channel. I used them in my last battle report with the Death Corps Krieg, and they are extremely effective. Now, they were good when I was using them as Krieg. They are even better when you're running them as Catachan, because they get to re-roll the random number of shots on all the Plasma Cannon sponsons and on the turret as well. And because the way the Grinding Advanced rule works, you are firing the main turret twice. You're not the main turret doesn't have 2d6, so why is that important to make that distinction? It means that you can re-roll both dice for the number of shots when you're firing the main plasma cannon turret. So these are absolutely fantastic. They are extremely powerful. With that Catachan trait, you've got a very good reliability when it comes to the number of shots, because one of the big problems with random shot weapons is sometimes you'll get that double one. When you're playing Catachan, that just isn't a problem. You'll consistently be getting 10 plus plasma shots from that main turret, and you should be consistently getting additional 4 shots from your plasma cannon sponsons. You could argue to put the las cannon on this vehicle, but with all the points costs that have gone up, each one of these tank commanders is running you at 225 points already, so I would keep the Heavy Bolter. You then have the third HQ choice is a company commander, just last pistol chainsword. You're just taking that guy because you need some orders for your infantry squads. Speaking of infantry squads, we're going to move into the troop section now, and the first detachment, you want to be looking at taking about 5 squads of infantry. Now, with Catachans, it's really important take a nice core of infantry, because they are actually good at doing damage. Your Catachan Guardsmen will be rocking strength 4, and they will be rocking 3 attacks each by the time we're done with them. That is very, very powerful. You don't want to give them any upgrades. You just want to be getting the maximum number of strength 4 attacks. I know some people said, what about power swords on sergeants for that? I wouldn't bother with that, especially with there being so many invulnerable saves around these days. The best thing that you can do for your Catachans is just to put out as many attacks as possible. Strength 4 being extremely competitive. It's in that wound. It allows you to take advantage of the wounding system, which means right up the way to any medium tank, anything that's strength 7, you're still wounding it on 5s. And with a squad of guardsmen, you know, each one of those guards is going to have 3 attacks. So that's 30 attacks to an extra 2 from the sergeant with a chain. So we're looking at 32 strength 4 attacks per squad. It's definitely, each one of those squads has got some punch, and you're running 5 in the 1st battalion alone, so that's really good. You then want to be looking at what is going to become a staple in every guard list, whether it's catching or not. You want to run a blob of Bullgryns. Okay, so the blob of Bullgryns, you want to take 6 of them, and you just want to give each one of them, you want to give them a mixture of slab shield and brute shields. You want to go about 50-50. So the reason you want the mix is because with Melter being prevalent a lot these days, and with Marine Melter being very prevalent, they can start getting up to AP -5. Previously, Bullgryns could kind of get away with just taking the slab shields, and between Psychic Barrier and between Take Cover, they could be like, I'm on a 4+ if I get hit by Melter anyway. Now, because Melter's AP -5, you will go up to a 5+ save unless you are rocking a couple of those invulnerable saves. So it's good to have a mix. You also want to, you still want to buff them, so you're definitely going to want to take an Astropath. And to be honest, with the way the hit modifiers work these days, that Astropath, you're going to want to give it the Psychic Barrier power. Now the problem with Astropaths is that they've almost doubled in points, so you only really want to take the 1, and like I said, you don't really need Night Shroud anymore because there's so much dense terrain rocking around the field that you can probably get away with just taking the 1 with Psychic Barrier, and you'll be able to pick up a -1 to hit modifier anyway, just from the battlefield. Of course, I already mentioned this, but you want to be taking a Mistorm Priest. The reason you want to take the Priest is not only is it good for the Bullgryns if they're going to be rocking forward and bashing things in the head with the Bullgryn Mauls, it's also good so that your Guardsmen can get an extra attack each, and that's just the first step into giving them 3 attacks each. Now, the last thing you want to be looking at for this attachment is you want to be taking a couple of Manticores, and you want to be spending, you want to give up your Warlord trait to be able to give 1 a tank ace ability, and then you want to spend a CP pre-game for another tank ace ability, and you're going to give both of these Manticores the full payload tank ace. The reason this is super important is it means that every single one of those Manticore shots will be hitting at a full damage 3, and damage 3 is going to be the new meta, guys. Damage 3 is going to be absolutely key because of Eradicators, because of Gravis armor spam. Eradicators and Aggressors are the new top meta. We have seen this from the Grand Tournament results this weekend. Salamanders, of all the chapters, Salamanders just came top, smashing everybody they came across except Adeptus Custodes, which is probably the one army that Marines will now struggle against in 9th. But you need that damage 3 because there's so many 3 wound models. There's so many of them. You need that flat damage 3 that you get from the full payload. Now, Manticores, there's always been this debate in the Guard. Do you want to take the Basilisk? Do you want to take the Manticores? I would argue now there is no argument. It is always going to be the Manticore. Okay, the Manticore is tougher, which is important. It's also more importantly, now that there are only 5 rounds in the game, its limit of only being able to fire 4 missiles across the whole game is just not really a problem anymore. You know, if you've only got 4 Storm Eagle rockets, it means you're now only missing out on 1 round, whereas previously you would be missing out on 2 rounds. So instead of missing out on 33% of the phases that you could take, shooting phases, you're now only going to miss out on 20%. So that's really, really, really good. Yeah, Manticores overall just are absolutely fantastic. And don't forget, with Katachan, when you fire them, if you get a 1, if you get a dreaded low roll, you can reroll one of those dice, and you can reroll, you know, for the random number of shots. So Manticores are really good, and Basilisks don't really benefit from the Katachan thing as much because they already roll 2 dice and pick the highest for their number of shots. So Manticores have got a higher damage output. They're only 20 points more expensive than Manticore. They can take part in nearly every turn now. They're just absolutely fantastic. Now, also don't forget that these Manticores can take advantage of one of the new stratagems from Psychic Awakening, which allows them to get a +1 to hit if they can see their target. It's a really, really good stratagem. And now, the fact that any vehicle can move and shoot without penalty. No longer do you have to worry about your Manticore moving and then having to spend the CP to just, you know, to basically make up for the negative to hit modifier. It's not a problem anymore. You can start your Manticores out of line of sight, move them the full 12 inches, which is, they have that advantage over Leman Russes where they can move the full 12 and it doesn't affect their number of shots. Move the 12 inches, get around the obscuring terrain, fire into the enemy, get reroll on the random number of shots and get +1 to hit via the stratagem. It's extremely powerful, and all of that at flat damage 3. Really, really powerful. A lot of army marine players these days are with the new eradicators. They're putting 3 squads of them in outflank, and they bring them in by strategic reserves. That with your manticores, you can hide them out of line of sight. You can protect them. Then when the eradicators come in, you can bring them out from cover, target an enemy directly, and blow one of those eradicator units away with that flat damage 3. It's really, really important. Flat damage is the new meta. That's why you're seeing things like flat damage on plasma becoming really powerful, and things like any damage to weapons like the full payload is becoming extremely meta at the moment, or should I say anti-meta. So that you also so in the second detachment, we start off with our first HQ choice, which is Colonel Ironhand Strachan. Now this guy is extremely important. Most named characters are a bit of a wash, unless you play Marines, but Colonel Ironhand Strachan is key to making this list work, because he gives everyone around him another +1 attack. That's how you get each one of those guards and squads up to 3 attacks each. You get +1 from the priest, +1 from Strachan. You rock those guys around with a nice big blob of guardsmen, and they can and will charge into many things in the game. Anything that's not toughness 8, they will charge in and they will tear it to pieces just through pure number of strength 4 attacks. It's extremely powerful. Colonel Ironhand Strachan is also really just a good HQ choice take, because he is powerful. He is the equivalent of a guard smash captain. He's only 80 points, so obviously you get 80 points worth of combat prowess, but he is an absolute beast. He gets rerolls to hit against to wound against monsters, sorry, and he is just an absolute beast. So you know, really powerful in combat. So he's basically like a mini smash captain for the guard. Second HQ choice you want to take for detachment is another tank commander. Now if you want to, you can commit to the third Eradicator chassis, or where we're seeing a bit of flexibility come in to this list is some people like to take a Demolisher cannon. Now Demolisher cannons are still very good and should be considered, and they what you tend to do is with this tank command, if you do take him with a Demolisher, is you buddy him up with another basic Leman Russ. Okay, and on that base, you give both of them just the whole heavy bolter and Demolisher cannon. You pair them up, and then every turn when you are you move these guys together as a pair, and every turn you use inspired tactics, which means the tank commander can order himself to reroll ones and order his buddy to reroll ones. The reason why you're seeing some people take the Demolisher siege cannon is because now with the smaller boards, it's easier to get into range. But also, it is a distraction Khan effect. If you have Manticore sitting on the back lines, if you have Eradicator sitting on the back line, Leman Russ Eradicator sitting on the back line, Executioner, sorry, if you have Leman Russ Executioner sitting on the back line, Eradicators on the brain, then it can be almost like your opponent's choice what he wants to pick off first. If he has a Leman Russ Demolisher, 2 Leman Russ Demolishers coming towards him, one of which is a tank commander, it forces him to have to pick, you know, to get rid of those ones first. Because if he doesn't, no one wants to take, you know, 46 Demolisher cannon shells in a turn. No one wants to take that. Nothing walks away from that feeling, you know, feeling pretty. Lastly, which is one of the, you know, that second Leman Russ is in the heavy support section for this second battalion, I should say. Then you want to take another 3 Guardsman squads. That brings you up to a nice round 80 Guardsmen. We've seen in 9th edition, with less people taking hordes, the need to take huge amounts of infantry. You know, previously in 8th, when it was a very anti-horde meta, we had to see, you we had to basically be taking 100 to 120 guardsmen minimum because you're going to lose so many. Now with things switching to more of a anti-elite meta, people aren't taking quite as much pure anti-infantry, and so what we're seeing is the ability for guardsman lists to get away with taking 80 to 90 infantry. And again, we saw that in my list when I was running my Krieg. Now, admittedly, they were grenadiers, but I will be honest with you, in that list, I wasn't really feeling the benefits of the carapace armour in my battle report. It was just the fact that I just had 90 bodies, and that was all the screening I really needed. And so I would say the reason this list does so well is it takes just enough screening. 60 guardsmen still isn't quite enough, but we don't need to be taking the 100 guardsmen to 120 guards anymore. We can get away with an 80 and 90, and that's what this list does. Last but not least, you want to take Sergeant Harker. He's just brilliant. Sergeant Harker, he is going to sit with those manticores, giving them real ones to hit. So you can imagine now, one of those manticores will be getting +1 to hit via the stratagem, and it'll be getting real ones to hit via Sergeant Harker. Sergeant Harker is just a good all-round cat to take for any backlining artillery that you're going to be bringing along. He's better than the massive ordnance. He's not that much expensive. I think he's 20 points more than a massive ordnance, and he comes with a pretty decent heavy bolter, which is good. But more importantly, his reroll 1 aura is not affected by if the enemy is within 36 inch range. He always gives captains around him reroll 1s to hit. So that is the list. So just going through it, I know I've done a bit of a breakdown. So what I'll do for those of you that may have struggled to follow that, the list is full plasma tank commander, number 2, company commander, 8 infantry squads, okay? And then you take a Bullgryn blob, you buff that Bullgryn blob with Astra Militarum Priest, you take a couple of manticores, in your second attachment you take Strachan, you take a Demolisher or Executioner tank commander, 3 more infantry squads, Sergeant Harker, and another Lemus battle tank. The end result is you're rocking 80 infantry, which is not too many for thin the ranks, it's not too bad, and you're also rocking 4 Leman Russes, 3 of which tank commanders, and 2 manticores. Now this list is not infallible, it does have some weaknesses. The primary weakness being that it has 6 vehicles in it, all of which give away 3 points for bring it down the secondary. So if your opponent is savvy and just focuses on the points, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to just rack up the bring it down points. So that's its main weakness. Its other main weakness is it's a little how to put it, it's a little easy for one of the legs to get kicked out from underneath it. So because the infantry aren't rocking any special weapons to speak of, and all the big guns are being put into tanks, it does have the risk that if your opponent kicks out your spends the first couple of turns getting rid of that fire support, then your infantry are going to struggle to do damage after that. Now you are catching and you are strength 4, so you can kind of get around it, but still it is a little bit easy to focus down one aspect of the list and leave the other aspect of the list struggling to make up for it. But with the fact that you've got 6 hulls, with the fact that each one of those hulls is putting out a fantastic amount of firepower, it's not too bad. And to be honest, your opponent is going to have to get you down to basically 2 out of 6 vehicles before he's going to see a appreciable before that armor basically becomes not very good, which will take him multiple turns to do that. He should, if he's focusing on it, he probably could get that done by turn 3, maybe turn 4, but by then you've already got a lot of work out of those vehicles anyway. So there you go, guys. That is the current competitive list that is rocking around. I've seen it do pretty well in 8th edition tournaments. I've seen it done pretty well in 9th edition tournaments. I hope it all makes sense. I will put the list down in the description below. And of course, let me know what you think about this list. Let me know what you think could be improved. How would you tweak it? If there's anything that you think I've missed about the list that is a key aspect of it, please let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.